Hi, and welcome to Solstice video number 2 of our journey through Icecrown Citadel. This video was taking Wednesday, December the 9th, the first day after release of patch 3.3, and it will be covering the 25-man normal mode of Lady Deathwhisper. In this fight, you want to bring 2 to 3 tanks. It can definitely be done with 2 tanks, however starting off when learning it, it is easier and best to have 3 to handle all the ads, an ad from the stair, and to make sure somebody's picking up the boss fast enough. You also want to have 4 to 6 healers, 1 to 2 on each tank. The rest, there will be a lot of random raid damage, and they need to keep them up. As far as the remainder being DPS, that is mixed almost evenly between melee and magic damage. Phase 1 of this fight is mostly an ad fight. Every 20 to 30 seconds, you'll get 3 ads on the right hand side and 3 ads on the left hand side of the room. You need 1 tank on both sides to gather and hold aggro on the 3, with the DPS evenly mixed between magic and melee taking them down. While this is going on, Lady Deathwhisper has a mana shield above her. The goal of this phase 1 is having just enough DPS to bring down all the ads while at the same time breaking down that mana shield above her, which will start phase 2. Equally important during this time, you need to make sure somebody, here our 3rd tank, is keeping an eye out for the stairs behind you where you entered, where randomly an ad may spawn. It's usually just 1 though. The type of ads for this fight is 100% consistent. On the left hand side you'll have 2 fanatics, the melee, and 1 adherent, the magic caster. On the right hand side you'll have 2 adherents, the casters, and 1 fanatic. Now the fanatic, the melee version, has a cleave and will need to be turned away from the raid. During the fight, there are a couple basic attacks that need to be watched. One off the cult adherent is called Curse of Torpor. It will increase the cooldowns on the player it casts by 15 seconds. It needs to be cleansed immediately. The second off the Fanatic is one called Necrotic Strike. It's their main attack other than the cleave. It'll not only hit the current target for 70% of weapon damage, but the worst part is it will leave a debuff that will negate the next 15,000, 14,000 worth of healing on that player. It must be healed through. During these fights, Lady Deathwhisper also casts a buff on a random mob of hers called Dark Empowerment. The things you need to look for on this one depends on the mob it's cast upon. For example, the adherent is going to gain what's called the Shroud of the Occult. It looks like a big purple shield around them. Depending on what tank is on them, they may need to call out and have somebody else on it, but what it requires is a lot of melee damage to get rid of it, probably about 40 to 50,000 worth of damage. You don't want a caster type tank on this because it will reflect back all that damage the person has caused to the adherent. You also, if you ever get a fanatic with Dark Empowerment, need to either crowd control it or have your tanks pop a cooldown and kite it all around. It is right here, this big ugly looking abomination. If he hits you, his buff, the damage is increased by 25% and he will heal back 300% of the damage he caused. Now, mindful, it only lasts for 15 seconds, but until we started kiting him and found all this out, it was almost a sure wipe. He hits hard on the tanks, so that needs to be either called out. I need somebody over here to take care of it. We need crowd control. Just be mindful of that. It is very deadly. As we're getting closer to phase 2, there's a couple AoE type random damage things you need to keep in mind. One, she will drop a Death and Decay. I personally recommend going into your settings and turning up project textures. You'll be able to see it. The reason why is it's not really that noticeable, and there might be a slight confusion if you have Death Knights in the raid, especially like myself tanking. The green one will be hers. The red one will be a friendlies. So keep that in mind. If you see a green red or a green circle in the middle of the floor, move, get out of it. It'll let you know. Boss mobs usually will project it out on the screen for you and shake it and do all that good stuff. But AoE damage, besides the cleave on the fanatic, the adherent does a death chill blast. After it goes through that Shroud of the Occult back when it got the Dark Empowerment off of her, Lady Deathwhisper, once that shield is down, it will target a random raid member, hit that person and everyone in a 10-yard range for about 9 to 10,000 Shadow Frost damage. So while everyone else wants to just huddle in the middle and kind of lax off except for the melee, be mindful of that. Be mindful if anyone has it and if it's going to be near you. It's best to stay at least within 10 yards of everyone, or I mean outside of 10 yards. But do what you can. It will hurt. They also cast Dark Martyrdom, which does about the same thing, but it's a 4-second cast. I don't know if it's interruptible or not, but when it's done, it will explode around everybody within 15 yards will take damage. And on to phase 2. Once your shield is down, if any adds are still up, they still need to be downed. They need to be killed as fast as possible, and anyone near Lady Deathwhisper needs to make sure they are not attacking her or targeting her or doing anything until the tank gets some firm aggro. Of course, this would be the perfect time for a misdirect or a death grip or what have you. Couple things to keep in mind is this whole fight, she will continue to drop the death and decay, so you may need to constantly be moving out of it. She will continue to be doing her frostbolts, frostbolt volley, but that brings me back to the frostbolt. If at any time you see this cast, you need to interrupt it. We did a chain from the warriors, rogues, and death knights. The reason being is it's a 2-second cast that is targeted on the main tank. Now, if it went through, you're looking at 50,000 of unresistible frost damage. You're basically going to cause a wipe if you guys cannot interrupt it. So that is like serious top priority. The second thing is a chain taunting with the tanks. She will cast Touch of Insignificance on them. I believe it goes up to 5 stacks, but each time she stacks it on the tank, their threat is reduced by 20%, or their threat generation. It starts getting critical about the 3rd time it lands. The 4th time, definitely worthless as a tank, and need to sit out for, until the debuff falls off of you. It is similar to Gormonk's Impale, so it does have a duration. You need to make sure they fall off before you taunt off of another tank. I want to say the rotation we used was 1 debuff on the tank, and it is taunt off. It could have been 2, but I know it was just so severe that at 40% less threat, 1 stack would be enough. Just make sure you let it drop off before your next turn of taunting off. This is our 25-man version. I am going to be putting out our 10-mans. We just completed that tonight, so we do appreciate you guys watching and enjoying our adventures. Till next time, this is WoW McPain, signing off.